Yes, he's got himself an overseer because he's well aware of my roaches. I've got quite a lot of them now. We can see that he's sitting on 24 drones whilst I'm sitting on 22 drones. Even though I've got myself the expansion coming up, I've actually got less drones because it's not so much of a concern. I really need to win the next fight, or at least leave it at a stalemate before I start producing more drones. That's in my opinion. So we can see my opponent is starting to get himself quite a few hydralisks. He's got himself 19 Zerglings, 6 hydralisks, 19 roaches versus my pure 27 roaches. Now he's going to want to try and pick off these overlords. Now fortunately I upgraded the overlord speed, which I think is really crucial. It really is worth saving about 100 gas for that. See, I just burrow away one roach. I can see I'm not going to win this. I'm going to have to back off now. Lose a few there. I don't know if I actually got to kill that much. So I initially wanted to try and micro fight that, but it wasn't going to happen. He's definitely got a much superior force than me. And unfortunately this is a bad time for me, because what's happened is a couple of my overlords are now coming into their rally point and they're going straight towards the enemy. Oh my god, that's so annoying when you're playing Zerg. Why can't you get overlords on a separate rally point? I don't know. And I have to react quickly. Oh god, get all the roaches back. I can't fight this army at the moment. He's got a nice mix: Zerglings, roaches, hydras. Now he's doing what you would argue is the right thing, getting a healthy mix. Zerglings to take the first initial hits because they're just cannon fodder. Roaches to really get in there, take some tanking, do some good damage as well, and hydras just do pure DPS at the back. Whereas I'm just going pure roach route, and we're going to see how well that works out. So if we just pause it for a moment just to look at the size of the armies. We got my enemy. He's got 4 more drones than me as well, so he's got a bit more income, I'd assume. Yeah, slightly more income, so I kind of can't afford to lose this battle right now. And the food counts are exactly the same, 96 and 100. He's got 4 drones, so actually you could say he's a little less on army size, just by a slight amount. So we've got 19 Zerglings for him, 13 hydralisks, 15 roaches, against my pure 33 roaches. Arguably, you would say that his army is bigger, and I think it is in terms of cost wise. I mean, I'm sure there is a way to find out. Spending army, yes, his army is indeed the larger one, but he has lost the most resources so far this game, so things are quite even still, and it all comes down to what's going to happen in this next fight. Will mass roaches beat a nice mixed hydra roach Zergling army? So we're fighting on mass creep here as well, so speed is of the essence. Here we go. So we've got a lot of my roaches here. They've got to get in closer. All of them can reach. I'm going to split off half of my roaches to try and focus down the hydras, whilst the rest of my roaches do damage to the other roaches, because roaches still do good DPS, just not quite as much as hydras. So we can see that I'm managing to whittle down quite a few of the hydras. He's actually brought in some extra reinforcements at this point, but I have won the initial roach war between the 2 roaches. So then my other roaches can come in and finish off the rest of these hydras. So what we were looking at there was basically a very even fight in terms of army size, but what's happened is neither of us even had upgrades there actually. I did check before, and yes, you can see that I'm sitting with about 20 roaches. Now I was probably making roaches during that fight, in all fairness, but even if I wasn't, you could still say I probably would have had 12 roaches left at least, whereas my opponent basically lost everything. And there's the burrow coming in handy. This is why you kind of have to stick to roaches almost the whole way through the game. It's a little bit silly, but that's the way it is, because they're just so much better than the upgrades for roaches are so much better than the upgrades for hydras. You know, this burrow ability, the ability to move whilst burrowed, is just so much more stronger than what hydras can do. And roaches actually, they beat hydras one-on-one more or less. I mean, of course it's very circumstantial, but you just saw there how well my roaches did there. I didn't do any particular great micro. I just tried to focus down the hydras as best as I could, whilst the rest of the roaches were more or less auto-attacking. And they came off a lot better than my opponents did. So now I've gone nuts on the drones, because I knew I won that battle by quite a long way. My opponent has then spent a lot of his resources building up his army again, so he can stop me from breaking into his base. If he didn't build that army, I'll be able to get straight into his base and finish the game right there. But he's already lost, because whilst he's been doing that, he's still only on equal setting with me, and I'm just cleverly burrowing under here, because I know that his overseer is actually elsewhere on the map, which is coming down here now. He probably knows, which is why he's moving back, because you can actually see the sort of dust from your opponent ever so slightly, like when you see invisible units, you can see sort of like the blur that's there. They're not truly invisible, but they're invisible if you're not looking hard enough, basically. So whilst we were having that battle, I basically won at that point, because I was just making mass roaches and he was making mass army, and all the library he spent on his army only matched equal to what I had army-wise. I even won that fight there. So that wasn't enough once I had vastly more roaches. and drones. So also I was getting myself an infestation pit, because that would be the next step of the journey here. Is, like I say, I've tried this a lot of times. I lose a lot of games trying this, but Zerglings, Banelings and Hydras don't seem to work for me. They might work for other people, but they don't seem to work for me in Zerg versus Zerg. So I was actually going to be getting myself a lot of infesteds, because I was setting myself up with the resources. I saved it a bit, went heavy on the drones. You can see that I should be able to make at least 4 infesteds now. 100 and 150, so 100 minerals, 150 gas, I believe they are. So yes, I would have been perfectly set up to build 4 infestors at that exact point. It wasn't quite deliberate, but it did work out quite nicely, as you can see, the resource wise. So infestors would have been far much stronger than I think than Hydras, Zerglings, roaches, because of the fungal growth ability combined with the roaches tanking. So roaches and infestors are a seriously scary mix. Not to mention that infestors can be a sort of anti-air. Very good against mutalisks when they stack up together. You can actually finish off a complete bunch of mutalisks if you have like 3 or 4 fungal growths. So anyway, I could explain further, but I think I'll leave it at that. As you can see, basically what I'm saying is that roaches and infestors I think were the long-term plan, whereas roaches were the main plan for early to mid-game in CVZ, and it seemed to pay off for me this game. So, thank you very much for watching. This has been WTii. Please subscribe, rate and comment.